Good evening. It is my privilege to call to order and welcome you to the 2022 annual reorganization meeting of the Lacey Township Board of Education. I join you now to ask you to join me in saluting our flag of our great nation.
Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this reorganization meeting was originally advertised in the Asbury Park Press and the Beacon on January 14th, 2021, amended and re-advertised on January 7th, 2022, and by posting the notice in the Forked River and Lenoka Harbor post offices, and by filing a copy of the notice with the Lacey Township Clerk as required by the Open Public Meetings Law. At this time, I must read this following statement into the minutes of this meeting. The 2022 annual reorganization meeting was originally scheduled to be held last Thursday, January 6th, 2022 at the high school lecture hall. However, on that evening, refusal of members of the public to comply with Executive Order 251 prevented that meeting from being called to order, compelling the board to convene this evening's meeting, which was the earliest possible date for it to convene by remote means. I am now proud to administer the oath of office to Mr. Salvatore Armato and to Harold Skip Peters Jr. I will do this in alphabetical order. So Mr. Armato, are you here with us this evening?
I am. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Armato. If you have a Bible, I invite you to place your left hand on that Bible.
Can my wife hold it for me?
Excuse me?
Can my wife hold it while?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That'd be great. As long as we could see you and hear you, that'd be great. And then raise your right hand, please, sir. And if you can, recite the oath of office as I provided it to you.
Sure. I, Salvatore Amato, do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state, under the authority of the people, so help me God. I, Salvatore Amato, do solemnly affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Mr. Armato, congratulations and welcome to the Board of Education, and thank you, Mrs. Armato, for your help. Mr. Armato, I'd ask you to mute yourself, and Mr. Peters, I would ask you to do the same, sir. If you have a Bible or anyone you would like to hold that for you, place your left hand on it and raise your right hand, please, and recite the oath as I provided it to you.
Are good, Pat?
You are good, sir. If you raise your right hand, to be perfect.
Thank you, sir. I, Harold Peters Jr., do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same the governments established by the United States and this state, under the authority by the people, so help me God. I, Harold Skip Peters, do solemnly affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by the law to office member of the Board of Education, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and just perform the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Mr. Peters, welcome back to the Board of Education.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, both of you, at your earliest convenience, I invite you to please call my office to make an appointment to come and sign the original copy of that oath, which you just swore, to be included in your official file for the Board of Education. I now happily call the roll of the newly constituted Board of Education for this district. I call in alphabetical order for attendance. Mr. Armato,
Here.
Mrs. Downing, I know she's here. I saw
Sorry,
her.
present.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Claus,
Here.
Mrs. McAvoy,
Am present.
Mr. Polino,
Present.
Mr. Peters,
Present.
Mr. Scanlon.
Present.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our Board of Education. At this time, I call for nominations for the office of President of this Board of Education. I will ask nominations one at a time, and when all nominations have been made, I will ask a member to make a motion to close the nominations, and thereafter, we will have a roll call vote for office of President. Anyone have anyone they wanted to nominate?
Yes, at this time, I would like to nominate Mr. Polino for the role of president.
Thank you, Mrs. McAvoy. Are there any other nominations for the office of President?
Hi, yes, Mr. DeGeorge, I'd like to nominate myself, Salvatore Amato, for the office of president.
Thank you, sir. Are there other nominations? All right, I will ask for a motion to close nominations for president.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, Mrs. Downing, Mrs. Claus. So at this time, as I said, I will take a roll call vote. I will roll call vote in the order in which I received the nominations. So this is for the vote for president for Mr. Polino. Again, I'm going to call these in alphabetical order. Mr. Armato,
No.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy,
Yes,
Mr. Polino,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
And because I'm compelled to, I will also now roll call vote for Mr. Armato. Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
No.
Mrs. Claus,
No.
Mrs. McAvoy,
no,
Mr. Polino,
No.
Mr. Peters,
No.
Mr. Scanlon.
No.
Mr. Polino, I acknowledge you, therefore, as the duly elected president of the Board of Education for the 2022 school year. At this point, I turn the meeting over to you, sir, and we would proceed at your convenience for nominations for the office of Board Vice President.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeGeorge. Thank you, fellow board members. I appreciate it. At this time, I would like to take nominations for the office of Vice President. Anybody at this time can offer nominations for Vice President.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Scanlon.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other nominations for Vice President? Mr. DeGeorge, seeing none, I'm going to ask at this time that you cast the necessary ballot. Yes?
I'd like to make a motion to close nominations.
Thank you. I was
I'll
about to
second.
ask
Sure,
that.
thank you. Yes. Mr. DeGeorge, can you,
McAvoy, who's the second? I'm sorry, I missed it.
I was.
Ms.
Mrs.
Downing.
Thank you, Mrs. Downing. I appreciate that. So seeing one for Vice President, and that being Mr. Scanlon, I called roll as follows. Mr. Armato,
No.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy,
Yes,
Mr. Polino,
Absolutely.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeGeorge. Okay, at this time, we have our board attorney, Mr. Bruce Padula. He's going to deliver to us the annual required school ethics training to the board members. Mr. Padula, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Everyone's favorite part of the meeting, you get to hear the lawyer talk, but I promise that it will be efficient but thorough. So school ethics training is required by statute, and there's the source of school ethics come from two different places, both near each other in New Jersey statutes. One part is called the School Ethics Act, and the second part is called the Code of Ethics for School Board Members. And we'll get into more detail on them in a little bit, but really to boil them down, what they come down to, and I'll refer back to this, is what I call the 4 C's. And so if you just remember the 4 C's, that really will keep you out of any trouble. And remembering the 4 C's, I'm not asking you to be a lawyer or a school ethics expert, just to what they tell us first year of law school is to be able to spot the issues. If you think there's a potential issue, I'm a resource for you. Come talk to me and we'll work it through and figure out if there's an issue that you must abstain from or somehow recuse yourself. We'll work through that. If we need further assistance, we could always ask the School Ethics Commission, which I'll talk about in a little bit, for an advisory opinion. But I'm here as a resource to make sure that no one runs afoul of these statutory Code of Ethics for school board members and the School Ethics Act. But the 4 C's are, the first one is conflict of interest. The second is chain of command. The third is communication. And the fourth is confidentiality. And conflict of interest will come up a lot. That's contained a lot in the School Ethics Act. For example, as a board member, you can't be involved in a contract with the Board of Education. You can't have a family member who's involved in a contract with the Board of Education. Anything which, if you have an interest outside of your role as a board member that puts you in conflict and has the appearance of impropriety to the public on, who's your master in that case? Are you acting in the best interest of the Board of Education, or are you acting in the best interest of whatever that other interest is that you have? So that's the general premise, and I don't think conflict of interest is a new concept for anyone. Chain of command is a very common thing in school districts, and I'm not sure if you have it in Lacey, but many school districts, and almost all of them, so you might have it as well, is actually a chain of command on your website that tells both the public, what is the chain of command to follow. We don't go to our superintendent with every problem, but there's a chain of command for the public, like I said, and also for board members. For board members, really, we don't want to be bothering our superintendent all the time. The superintendent should deal with the board president, perhaps the board vice president, from time to time board members, but the board members themselves, you really should go to either, if it's a question about, say, buildings and grounds, and you have a buildings and grounds or facilities committee, go to your committee chair first. If you don't get an answer there, you move it up the chain to the board president. And then you can go up to the superintendent after that. But the biggest problem or complaint I hear from superintendents, not from Dr. Clark, she has never said anything as this, but that they are bothered by board members all the time, and it prevents them from actually getting things done. So we want to let the educational professionals do their job, and the best way we do that is follow the chain of command. Everyone here is entitled to answers as a board member to all your questions. We just want to get those answers in the most efficient way possible, both for you and for the school district. The third C is communication. Communication comes in a lot of different ways. Communication from parents, from board members to each other, from administration to you, but communication is the key. We don't want problems to fester. We want to nip things in the bud. Parents are going to come to you, in the supermarket, in the deli, wherever you see them around town, and they're going to tell you stuff. But we'll get into this again a little bit further. Your job is not to run the school district as a board member. Your job is to let the educational professionals run the school district. So communication in that case, you would inform the parent, look, you going back to the other C, look, you really need to follow the chain of command. If you have a classroom problem, you should talk about it with your child's teacher first. If you're unhappy with that, move it up the chain, talk to the principal. You as a board member can't necessarily be involved, and you don't have the credentials to be involved in resolving those questions. And by credentials, I mean, you're not licensed by the state of New Jersey to run schools. There's laws on who can do that, and they have to go to school and take tests and be licensed by the State Department of Education to make those decisions. The third or the fourth is confidentiality. That's a big one. You're going to learn a lot of things as a board member. You're going to hear about bullying cases, not necessarily with students by name, but you're going to hear about incidents. And I know, most towns, word gets out and people can figure out who is who, whether it's a personnel matter or, like I said, a student matter. Confidentiality is probably the most important thing that you have to remember as a board member. And the public and your friends and the public in general, they see knowledge as power or influence or whatever, and they know you have confidential information. And people are going to ask you because they know you know things. You just got to remember that's paramount, is the confidentiality. So I ran through that a little quickly, but we're going to get into a little bit more. But I just wanted to lay that out as the premise of really all of code ethics, the code of ethics for board members and the School Ethics Act. I try to boil it down. So if you have one takeaway today, just remember the 4 C's, and everything else you could, I don't want to tell you to forget it, but that's kind of the takeaway and just a little trick to remember that. So what is our role as a board member? Really, as a board member, your role is to set policy. That's kind of the only thing you actually do, believe it or not. And I know that's frustrating because you're active and involved community members and you want to make a difference. And I was once a board member and I wanted to make a difference too. And that's why you put your name out there and run. But your job is to set policy. And the best analogy that I heard for that, and I use this all the time, is that you as the board, you are the owners of the ship. The ship is the school district, Lacey Township School District. You set the destination of the ship as those owners. Dr. Clark is your captain of the ship. She's trained and educated and qualified by the state of New Jersey to navigate your ship to that destination that you want it to be at. So through your policymaking roles, you set the goals of the school district and where you want to be. And then Dr. Clark and the rest of your administration are the captain and crew of that ship that get you there. As school board members, your power really just comes from the state of New Jersey, from the legislature, from the laws governing your role as a school board member. You can only act as a board member when you're sitting here, the 7 of you, either virtually or in public. That's the only time you can speak as a Board of Education member. Now, the flip side of that is you are always seen in the public as a member of the Board of Education. So sometimes that advice or guidance that I give, that you are only a board member when you're sitting here with a quorum, because sometimes gets misconstrued. Don't forget, you're always perceived as a board member elsewhere, but you cannot speak for the Board of Education, except the board president, actually. But individual board members cannot speak for the Board of Education. You can't make promises on behalf of the Board of Education. The board can only act when you're here as a quorum, at least 4 of you in a public meeting. One thing I would encourage you to do is, I'm sure your policies are online, your school district policies. They're very organized and interesting, especially if you're a board member. They are, the first section, they're usually split up into thousands. So there's the zeros, the 1,000, 2,000s, 3,000s, etc. The zeros are your board bylaws. I would encourage you to read your board bylaws and see how you run. It'll tell you how the agenda is set. It'll tell you the functions of the president and vice president. It'll tell you, that you follow Robert's rules. It'll tell you all sorts of things on just the operation and the procedure of the Board of Education. And that's something, that's interesting for some people. Some people don't find it interesting, but, as a lawyer and someone always interested in government, I always thought those kind of things and Robert's rules are interesting. You do adopt Robert's rules, and so that is what governs the procedure of your meetings. But those policies and bylaws also govern. So I definitely encourage you to read those. Now, to get to the substance of the Code of Ethics and the School Ethics Act, at our meeting last week, I did have handouts for everyone. I don't know if you could see this. Does everyone have that? If not, I can email Pat a hard copy or a PDF version to make sure everyone gets that.
Mr. Padula, I did not have it, so if you don't mind, I will get it from you and I'll share it out with the members.
Okay. I'll email to you after the meeting, but I did have copies there, and I think I saw some people had them. So again, the statutory requirements come from two different sections: the School Ethics Act, which is in Title 18A, and the Code of Ethics for School Board Members. The School Ethics Act, like I said before, really talks mostly about those conflict of interest, to kind of refer back to the C's. So you're going to have the handout. I'm not going to read each of the sections of the School Ethics Act to you, but my handout does break it out into each of those sections, and also provides examples from either advisory opinions or cases where someone has questioned the meaning of that section and requested an advisory opinion, or there actually was a complaint adjudicated by the School Ethics Commission resolving an alleged violation of one of those sections. So to touch briefly about the School Ethics Commission, that is a state public body created by statute, falls under the Department of Education. They get assigned their own deputy attorney general, and they provide both advisory opinions, and they adjudicate complaints of the School Ethics Act and Code of Conduct for school board members. They are located in Robbinsville, I believe, or somewhere around that area, maybe Monroe, Robbinsville. And I've gone to their meetings. They meet like Board of Education does. They meet monthly, and they hear cases. They decide advisory opinions. Sometimes they take testimony, but they are the state governing body that resolves School Ethics Act issues. Their decisions go to the Commissioner of Education and eventually to the Appellate Division of the Superior Court. So it is something that does become a judicial matter at the level before the School Ethics Commission. It's considered quasi-judicial because they're not judges, but they are evaluating and judging, for lack of a better word, these cases, and it does become a court order if it gets eventually up to the Appellate Division. I will talk a little bit, go into a little bit detail of the board member code of ethics, and you'll see in the handout it's set up the same way. Each of those different sections, there's A through J. There's guidelines there, and some of those we put in some cases afterwards. Just to kind of digress a little bit into my handout, and then we'll go back and wrap up with the code of ethics. There's a discussion on there about using email and the Open Public Records Act. That's something that you need to be cognizant of. That I've seen cases where board members have been perceived to be texting during a board meeting. And if you're texting, even on your phone or using your personal email, as long as it's board business, that is a public record that the public can access via the Open Public Records Act. All they have to do is fill out a form. And actually the case law says they don't even have to fill out the form, but there is an official form that they fill out. They submit it to Pat as your records custodian, and any emails you write, any text messages, if it's related to board business, that would be a public record. There are some exceptions to that. One exception is if it's a privileged email that is communication with me and it's attorney-client privilege, that's something that would be exempt from the Open Public Records Act. There's also in the handout, there's a outline further about the conflicts, talking again about the C's. You can look through and see if there's conflicts. And there's both in-district conflicts, whether you have family members that work in the district, if you have family members that work in other districts in New Jersey, that could create a conflict of interest. So just be aware of that. So I encourage you to take a look through that. There's also out-of-district employment conflicts that you could look through the handout and check that out. And there's a handy chart, which actually arose from a School Ethics Commission advisory opinion about the level of relationship you have with someone who is a teacher, either in this district or in other districts, and the extent of your involvement in the negotiations process. So that's usually where the conflicts of interest arise. There's some other interesting opinions about volunteering, board members who want to be members of the PTA or PTO and get involved in schools. There are some restrictions on that. You don't have the same unfettered right as a board member to volunteer in the schools, because you as a board member can't be involved in directing staff members or things of that nature. And that's where it becomes a gray area if you're a volunteer, like a class parent or something of that nature. To the level of your involvement and interaction with staff members is prescribed by the School Ethics Commission. So that's another thing to be aware of. But to get back to each of the sections of the Code of Ethics, There's a couple of these that kind of seem really generic and kind of obvious on what they are, so we'll spend lesser time on that. But I'll also point out where most of the cases arise from. And some of the cases on this outline that you see, I was actually involved in, and so I could give you firsthand knowledge, either here if you have questions, or if you want to talk to me afterward about it, answer your questions on these specific cases, or how you, more importantly, how you could avoid being involved in any ethics complaints. So code of ethics for school board members. A, the very first one, I will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures. This requires us to comply with all laws, whether we like them or not. I know obviously here, masks was an issue, but it's not an issue here. I represent a lot of school districts, and a lot of people don't like the mask mandate, but it's been my legal opinion and general consensus that that's a legal requirement. And this code of ethics would require people to comply with that. And again, there's a case under there that if you want to refer that to that, it's obviously unrelated to masks, but it's when the School Ethics Commission has adjudicated an alleged violation of that section. The next one is, I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. So basically that means that we're going to make the best decisions based on the recommendations of our chief school administrator and the rest of our administrators that are in the best interest of all the children of the district. That seems kind of obvious, so we don't want to spend too much time on that one. The next one, I will confine my board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. So again, like I said when I started, what is your role as a board member? Your role is to establish policy. Your administrators, your professionals, your teachers, they're the ones that carry out the policy. Your recourse as board members is to ensure, and there's a subsequent one that kind of touches upon this. It's very similar. Your job as a board member is to ensure that those policies are followed. And how you do that, you do an annual superintendent's evaluation. That's something that if you feel the superintendent's not pursuing or achieving the goals that you had set out through your policymaking ability, that's where that comes out. And again, like, you would follow the chain of command. If you as an individual board member feel that things aren't being done, go through your committee chairs, go through the board president before just going up to the superintendent. And really kind of touch upon this now. If there is any staff members, employees of the district that you deal with, it should be limited to the superintendent and school business administrator. As board members, we should not be dealing with any other staff member. Obviously, if you have students in the district, you're going to deal with their teachers. Run-of-the-mill normal correspondence, not an issue, whether the teacher is emailing you or you want to email the teacher something about homework or routine matter. That's not necessarily a big deal. But if you have a child in the district that has some issue that you need to have a special meeting with the teacher, talk to Dr. Clark first. Let her know, hey, I got this issue going on. And I would include the board president too, just so kind of keep that chain of command. I have this issue. I need to meet with Mrs. Kennedy. I just wanted you to know that ahead of time, because like I said before, how you're always perceived as a board member, the teachers of your district see you as controlling their livelihood. I don't want to speak for all of them. I haven't spoken to any of your teachers there, but my experience is teachers don't like to talk to board members. They are intimidated by it. So if you go to Dr. Clark first, she'll make sure everything's okay. It will help actually with your issue with your child. So just make sure you follow that chain of command and just keep everyone, kind of even keeled in that situation. I actually had one district, to tell you a war story. I had a board member who had to meet with her child's teacher, but the board member's student had an IEP, and another board member worked in the curriculum business, sold curriculum. So the first board member brought the other board member to meet with a non-tenured teacher and didn't tell anyone about it. The teacher almost passed out when the two board members walked in. Luckily, the and went in and immediately stopped it. I obviously got a call, but that's the worst way to handle something, to bring 2 board members in to meet with a non-tenured teacher and not tell anyone about it ahead of time. So as a parent, you don't give up your parental rights as a board member, but let's just go about things the best way and the right way possible. And if you need to deal with any staff members, or particularly your child's teacher, just make sure Dr. Clark is in the loop. This next one, the code of ethics, this is the one that gets most people in trouble when there is maybe this one and one other one, but this one definitely. I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members, see that they are well run. And like I said before, the only people who are licensed and credentialed by the state of New Jersey to run the schools and administer the schools are your superintendent and your certificated staff. They are the ones that have the education, the experience, and the credentials to make those decisions. So you as board members, you set the destination, you don't set the route. Board members will often try and say, well, I think we should do this, or I think you should adopt this curriculum, or I think the school day should be, structured this way. That's not necessarily the role of a board member. That's the role of your educational professionals. You can see there's a couple cases there. One of these I was involved in, where a board member was going and gathering information, not from a superintendent, but was speaking directly to staff members, to district supervisors, to try to gather data and come up with some analysis of something to recommend that the district handle things of an educational nature in a different way. You as board members are not qualified, do not have the credentials or the legal authority to do those things at this point. So you're not allowed to administer the schools. Again, you just have to make sure that they're well run, and how you do that is, through your evaluation process, and you ensure that your superintendent is pursuing the policies and objectives of the district, but you're not allowed to tell her how to do that. Just set the goal, and she sets the path and the destination. The next one, I will recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education and will make no personal promises nor take any private action that may compromise the board. This one causes some trouble sometimes, but I kind of started out my speech alluding to this, that you're only a board member when you're sitting there together at a meeting, at a quorum, to be able to take official action. But that doesn't mean you're not always perceived as a board member. So you can't say anything or make promises on behalf of the board that, hey, look, I can get this done, or the board's going to do this. A lot of times this comes up in social media now with Facebook and any other type of social media. You're allowed to make statements on social media. You could say what your position is, but I don't recommend that. Social media is just a slippery slope for trouble. But are you legally permitted to do so? You are. So I'm going to tell you what the law is, but what you're not legally permitted to do, or what you are legally required to do, if you're going to make any statements, Twitter, Facebook, whatever the social media is, you're not allowed to speak on the behalf of the board. You have to have a disclaimer that you are speaking for yourself individually and not on behalf of the board or as a board member. There's other restrictions there with, if you're campaigning for individuals to run for the board or any elected office, you have the right to do that, but you can't do it as a board member. You have to do it as an individual. And there's a lot of ethics cases that come out for someone saying, board member Padula supports so-and-so for mayor. Cannot do that. Padula as an individual, and I have to specifically say, I am not speaking as a board member on behalf of the board, supports so-and-so for mayor, that's permissible. You always have to have the disclaimer. I know it seems silly and clumsy and awkward if you're not used to that, but that's what gets people in trouble a lot, by not having that social media disclaimer or any disclaimer. I've dealt with cases that, 15 years ago, before there was really the prevalence of social media, but like NJ.com had, and all those, media sites had those chat rooms. A lot of people would go in there and put information out there on behalf of, and they wouldn't have a disclaimer and they'd get in trouble. The next one, I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interests or partisan political groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends. This one seems obvious. You guys make decisions. You don't always, not every vote has to be 7-0, but you're here to deliberate, do what's in the best interest, have a discussion. No one has to surrender their independent judgment or have any conflicts of interest with either special interest, partisan groups, or whatever. You're here to do what's in the best interest of the children, because that's what makes your district successful. Next one, I will hold confidential all matters. Again, another C, confidentiality. I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools, which, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals or the schools. In all other matters, I will provide accurate information and, in concert with my fellow board members, interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for the school, for its school. So there's a lot in there, but obviously the aspirations of the community, that's what you're there setting policies and the destination of the ship of Lacey Township, where it's going to go. That's how you set forth your aspirations for the community and the school district. But confidentiality, everything has to be confidential, whether it's a student matter, a personnel matter. I had an individual run afoul of this once and ended up being suspended for the board, where we had a teacher with a substance abuse problem who showed up to school intoxicated, had to be taken away by the police, and eventually, sought treatment and went about it the right way. And the board was informed of the incident, like a board should be, confidentially. Superintendent said, hey, just want to make you aware of an incident that occurred today. This is highly confidential, but in the interest of transparency, this individual put it on one of those, this was before social media, on one of those like nj.com chat rooms about a teacher showing up there. Well, it ended up getting the individual suspended from the school district, because that's a confidential matter. You have the right to know as an elected board member, but you don't have the right to put it out to the public. The public does not have a right to know that information. So just remember that. That's one that can get you in trouble. Next one, I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. So that Chief Administrative Officer is Dr. Clark. I've heard this described as she is your only employee. I know you have a large staff in the school district, but she is the only individual, the superintendent is the only individual that the board hires. Everyone else that you hire or vote to approve, you can only act on it with the recommendation of the Chief School Administrator, of Dr. Clark. She and her administrative team are the ones that, again, are qualified, credentialed by the state, have the experience to interview and make recommendations on who to hire, and then you sign off on those. I'm not saying you need to be a rubber stamp. You can ask questions of the hires, but you cannot disagree with any of the recommendations for any arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable reason. That's the legal standard. That's not something I came up with. So again, all personnel matters really start with the Chief School Administrator and come to the board. Next, I will support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. So again, your job is to support personnel, not undermine staff members, including the superintendent. The superintendent is really the CEO of the operation. You guys are the board of directors, board of trustees. The law of New Jersey empowers the superintendent to run the school district, to make all educational decisions, to recommend all employment decisions. And your goal really, I know people don't always like to hear this, wherever I go and give these ethics, is really to support your superintendent, because she has the qualifications and, again, the experience to make those recommendations and drive your school district to where you as the community, as the elected officials, want it to be. If she's not doing that, then that's when changes occur in superintendents. The next one, and I think this is the last one, so everyone might be happy to hear that. This talks about the chain of command, really. I will refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on the complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution. Again, if someone comes to you in the supermarket, oh, you got a classroom problem, you need to address it to the teacher first. Oh, I did, she didn't do anything. Well, then you need to go to the principal. Oh, the principal, she didn't do anything either. Okay, well, now you go to Dr. Clark. And if Dr. Clark then handles it or doesn't handle it, and the person comes back to you, then you say, okay, well, come to a board meeting and make a public comment. I mean, that's the chain of command, and all complaints really have to get referred back to administration. And it's a process. We always want to follow a process. It eventually, if it's not resolved, it'll come to you, but the goal there is to resolve these issues at the lowest possible level, which is not necessarily lowest to imply some value that it's at the lowest level, but it's at the closest, is probably better than lowest, closest to where the action is occurring. So we want to always refer things back to administration. So that's kind of it. I know I rambled on for a while, and I could probably talk a lot longer on school ethics, but I'm not sure anyone would want to hear that. So just remember, like I said, the takeaways are the 4 C's. Just remember conflict of interest, chain of command, communication, and confidentiality. And you don't need to be the school ethics expert. That's what I'm here and the School Ethics Commission is here for. Your job is to know that there's a potential issue and we could address it ahead of time. If you perceive it, something on the agenda or something that might come up at a meeting, talk to Mr. Polino as the president, Dr. Clark as the superintendent. They will reach out to me. We'll all talk and resolve these issues ahead of time. That's what I'm here for, to help guide you through this and avoid any problems. So unless there's any questions, comments, concerns, I'm going to stop talking now. And obviously, if you want to talk about something confidentially after the fact, either tonight or tomorrow, I'll be available. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Padula. Lengthy, but yet very informative. Appreciate it. So next, we're going to have some resolutions. Board members, you've been given those.
Mr. Polino,
Hello?
sir, can I just make a couple of very quick but related comments to what Mr.
Sure, go ahead.
I promise it'll be very fast. Board members and administrators who are on this call, in your packet, you received acknowledgement of receipt of the Code of Ethics. Mr. Padula went through it. I think he did a great job. I've heard a lot of these, and I think he did a very good job. Ask you to please sign, date those, and return those to me at your earliest convenience. There's also in your packet a conflict of interest questionnaire. It cannot be overstated that it's important for us, and I say this every time we have orientation for new board members. Our job, Dr. Clark, myself, board attorney, is work together to try to help all of us avoid potential conflicts, and conflicts turn into problems. So I've developed and provided to you a questionnaire, which is very brief, but really go to the point to identify potential conflicts so that prior to a board meeting, in reviewing an agenda, I can work with you, and perhaps if it's a sticky issue, work with Mr. Padula to try to identify and navigate through potential conflicts before they become problems. So I'd ask you to please, especially new board members, if you haven't done that already, please fill this out and return it to me at your earliest convenience. Also, Mr. Padula mentioned the School Ethics Commission. Every year, the SEC requires school board members and public officials, that's we administrators as well, to complete an annual personal financial and ethics disclosure. So those will be emailed to each of us directly from the School Ethics Commission in the next few weeks or so. I will be checking with each of you to make sure that you've got it. And if you have any questions, we can help you complete those required questionnaires. And finally, training. Each of our board members is required to complete training every single year. If we haven't done so already, we'll be reaching out to each board member to identify and help you register for and complete the training that you are required to take in this 2022 school year. That's all I have, but I really wanted to make those points. Thank you for the time.
Yeah. You're required to take a class every year, governance 1, 2, 3 of your first term. And then if you're reelected in the first year only of your second term. There's also, I don't know the schedule right now, but School Boards Association has a new board member orientation, which could be a 1 or 2 day program. That's always highly recommended. It's not required, but that kind of gives you a little bit more of the lay of the land and how all this stuff works. I mean, school districts are one of the most regulated industries in New Jersey. I tell the young attorneys that work for me, there's a statute or regulation on everything. You just got to find it. So that'll help you navigate through that, especially for the newer board members.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Padula. Thank you, Mr. DeGeorge. To move on. So we're going to have some resolutions we're going to have to vote on. Number 1 through 5, it's going to be Code of Ethics, combined statement of results for the 2021 election, parliamentary procedure, board bylaws, policies, and regulations, and our meeting schedule. Do I have a motion for 1 through 5?
Move.
Second,
I'll second.
Mr. DeGeorge?
Any discussion?
Yeah, any questions?
That's right. Any discussion? Thank you, Mrs. McAvoy.
You're welcome.
All right, if there's none, Mr. DeGeorge?
Sure. Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy,
Yes.
Mr. Polino,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
You're muted, Mr. Scanlon.
I'm sorry, yes.
There he is.
thank you, sir. Motion's carried.
Thank you, Mr. DeGeorge. Okay, letter J. It's going to be appointments by the president, effective immediately. So some of the appointments I have for this year coming up is basically our committees. For those that are new to the board, Mr. Amato and fellow audience members, if you're new to this process, we are a board of committees, not a board of the whole. So we meet in small groups of 3. And we have 3 committees and a couple subcommittees. So our committees are finance and operation, policy, curriculum, redistricting, and negotiations committee. So for this year, I gave it some great thought. And I put people in places where I thought it was going to be best suitable for our committees. I'm sorry, somebody have a question? Okay. So our finance and operation committee is going to be chairperson, Mrs. McAvoy, Mr. Scanlon, and myself. Alternate is going to be Mr. Peters. Policy committee is going to be Mr. Peters as chairperson, Mrs. Downing, Mrs. Claus. Alternate is myself. Curriculum committee is going to be Mrs. Downing, chairperson, Mrs. McAvoy, myself, alternate Mr. Scanlon. The redistricting committee is going to be Mrs. Downing, Mr. Peters, Mrs. Claus. And the negotiations, LTA negotiations committee carried over from last year is going to be Mr. Scanlon, Mrs. McAvoy, and myself as chairperson. So these committees will take effect immediately, and we'll start our a process of getting going for the next meeting. Our next order.
Did you
Ms.
also,
Downing?
select people for Ocean County School Board and New Jersey School Boards?
No, those are open right now. So I have the New Jersey School Board delegate and alternate, and the Ocean County School Board and delegate and alternate. They're pretty intense and cumbersome committees. I wanted to speak to individual board members to see if anybody's interested in doing that. And I hope to get that on board within the next week or so, because there's some traveling involved in that and so forth. And it's very time consuming. So I just want place anybody there without asking them. But thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Paolino, if I can just get confirmation, I've been selected for no committees. You're on mute, Mr. Paolino,
You're
sorry.
muted, Frank.
I'm sorry. Thank you. So, right, yeah, if I didn't answer you, if you didn't hear me, that is correct at this time. So our next agenda item is going to be public comments. So I'm going to read the usual statement to everyone that we normally read with a little bit of an addition. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand virtually, and when called upon, state their name, address, or affiliation, and intention to make a statement. Comment shall be addressed to the board president. Comment shall be made on one issue at a time. Comment shall be limited to 5 minutes. No audience member will be recognized twice until all who have wished to comment have been recognized. The thing I'm adding, effective tonight, we are, I just want everybody to realize out in the public that this is comments only. The purpose of the board meeting is to have our business done in public. It is not a school board's function to do business with the public. Let me state that again. Our order of business in public is to do our own business. It is not to do business with the public. Therefore, everybody is entitled to a comment, and it will be strictly comments. There'll be no questions answered. If a audience or staff member or somebody has a question for the board, there's a chain of command that you can follow. If it's a teacher issue, you could take it up with the building principal, district supervisor, whatever it might be, the assistant superintendent or the superintendent. If it's a question for the board or for the superintendent, by all means, please email the question to the superintendent. If you want to include the board president, vice president, you could do that also. And the superintendent will get back to you. At this time, we're going to open the floor for public comments. Mr. Lytle,
Yes, anyone who would like to comment at this time is instructed to virtually raise your hand using the Zoom app or dial *9 if you are calling via telephone. You will be called to unmute your microphone and speak in turn. Mrs. DeSenza, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Mr. Lytle?
Yes.
Regina DeSenza, Sunset Drive, Sunrise Beach. Good evening and New Year greetings to all. I'd like to thank the voters of Lacey Township that allowed me to serve not one but 2 terms of office as a Lacey Township School Board member. It was a bumpy ride at times, but I made it through 6 years of service, attending well over 100 board meetings. I highly recommend that all board members continue to take advantage of NJSBA's virtual training opportunities. I drove to Trenton many times to participate for in-person sessions, and now these sessions can be attended from home. I'd like to encourage parents, students, and the public in general to please consider becoming a school board candidate this coming year, or this year, 2022. 3 seats are up this November. If anyone is interested, contact the Ocean County Clerk's election office to obtain a candidate petition. Only 10 signatures are required to become a school board candidate. And I'm not shy. You can call me for questions, 609-290-5125. As for the mask issues and other such difficulties that parents have expressed, parents, please write to the governor. Either use the contact us email form on the governor's webpage or write paper letters, I suggest every week, to Governor Murphy, P.O. Box 001, Trenton 08625. The phone number, if you can get through, is 609-292-6000. Please put the pressure on the governor, not the local boards of education. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Senza. Mr. Lytle?
Mr. Bidnick, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Richard A. Bidnick, Forked River. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
All right, thank you. I would like to welcome and congratulate Mr. Salvatore Armato to the Lacey Township School Board. It is so nice to finally again have a parent whose children are in the school district representing the constituents. Currently, the sitting board members, excluding Mr. Armato, do not have any skin in the game. So it is very easy for them to make the very harsh decisions that they have made, such as enforcing outrageous quarantine and masking rules, which clearly don't work and actually hurt the children. Just looking at the educational testing scores, which were presented at the last meeting, clearly makes the point blatantly clear. The current board and administration are failing on all accounts. The current sitting board members, of course, excluding Mr. Armato, do not have the best interest at heart for the children of this school district. And they have proven time and time again during this whole COVID fiasco that making your children endure the unendurable is just fine with them. Let's be clear, the only ones they have ever been concerned about is the adults and not the children. Case in point, currently the school board has been suing the Department of Education in New Jersey concerning their methods dealing with their funding allocations. This board has always been only concerned about the money and not the children. When repeatedly asked by members of the public to join the unmasking lawsuit that is currently being litigated in federal court, have declined. In fact, it would have cost them absolutely nothing to join this lawsuit, but they still refused. They don't care about your children. It's all about the dirty money and making sure the adults get what they want. And God forbid, they would not want to upset the Führer, the governor, excuse me. This is not how a transparent, accountable, caring school board operates. Well, they pretend that they care and that everything is rosy and nice, but the reality is it's quite horrible and certainly not worth anything near the $80 million it is costing all of us. Many reforms need to be made to this board and the way it conducts its business. It's not transparent. It refuses to answer to the public it represents, and on most instances is completely out of touch with reality. Also, all of the current ethics charges going on amongst board members and former board members shows a lack of ethical conduct, which is extremely concerning to the public. I will be presenting to the public in coming meetings proposals to make this board fully accountable to the public it serves on all levels. The time has come to put up or shut up, and the frustrations in our community need to be addressed. This is, after all, a political body, accountable to us and not the other way around, and needs to be treated as such. So as we move forward in 2022, we must keep in mind that we, the citizens, have all of the power in our hands. We just need to exercise it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lytle.
Ms. DeLuca, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Okay, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would just like it noted that Mr. Polino was present at the initial reorganization meeting that occurred on January 6th at 1800, which is also known as 6 p.m. That particular meeting is the reason why we are here today doing a virtual meeting, because there were some unmasked people present there. With this said, I would further like to state that as Mr. Polino was at that moment, he was a board member at 6 p.m. on January 6th in that room. He was representing the Board of Education for Lacey. That in itself, I would like it to also be noted specifically to Mr. Padula, as I have now received a frivolous complaint from Mr. Polino directly against me for not masking, even though I was masked at that board meeting. Again, his complaint is referencing January 6th at 1800, which again, I would like it to be noted that we were all there at the Board of Education meeting, and Mr. Polino was considered a board member at that time. I would further like to just state, as a parent, I would like it to be recognized that once the executive order has expired, we would expect the board, our board that represents us parents, to again make these masks optional, as I do not want my children in a mask any longer. I understand you have the governor to deal with, but I would like something. I know you guys can't say it now, but it would be comforting to get something from the board stating that you are on our side, that once this governor does release his absolutely terrible executive orders, that you guys will stand up for us parents.
Thank you. Mr. Lytle, is there anybody else?
Ms. Leiter, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Anne-Marie Leiter, the Woods of Bamber. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say to announce myself. My heart is racing. First of all, I guess congratulations to the new president and vice president. Not my choice, but you know, that happens a lot in our country. You don't always get what you want when it comes to voting. I'm disappointed that the new president wouldn't give something to the new board member, Mr. Armato, put him on some committee. I'm shocked at that. As a newcomer, you would think, you welcome him, you invite him to do something to get him into more things in the school regarding the school board. So, know that that's noted. Ugh, it's disgusting. It's a shame. He was voted in by the people anyway. Whatever about the masks and the lawsuits, it's a shame that the board is not standing with the parents. But putting all that aside, I just want you guys to know that my daughter is truly suffering in school. She has 4 classes at the middle school. One of them is gym. That's not an issue. The other 3 classes, 2 of them, she has substitutes in because of this quarantining or whatever the heck you want to call it. The teachers have to stay home, so they're substitutes in 2 of her 3 academic classes. The substitutes give the kids a worksheet to do. The worksheet takes about 20 minutes, a half hour. And then for the rest of the time, they sit there and do nothing. I hope that, I don't know if you guys are even aware of it, since you're so busy worrying about who's on what committee and whatever, and sending out freaking notices to people. I'm frustrated. Further, also, I wanted to talk about, again, the food that's being offered in the cafeterias. And I would like to invite each of you, board members, superintendent, whoever, let's meet for lunch at the school. I'll wear a mask. I'll wear, a whole suit, whatever you want to do. Let's go meet for lunch unannounced and see what's being offered to our children. So besides them not being educated properly, they're not even offered a decent choice of food. It's garbage. I don't know that I would even feed it to my dog, and I love my dog. I guess that's it. I don't know. I'm just super disappointed I'm distracted by Mr. Armato not being included in anything. It's ridiculous. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slider. Mr. Lytle?
Ms. Pulick?
It's Michael Pulick here.
State your name and address and begin your public comment.
Sure. Hi, Mike Pulick, 3 Niagara Court. I have two boys in the district. I just wanted to congratulate everyone on their, successful runs and elections and a new year and a new board, and wish you all luck. And, just express our appreciation. Listen, I've sat here and I've sat in a number of board meetings, and you guys have a thankless job. So wanted you to know that at least someone appreciates you. So I'm not going to get all political like some of our previous commenters. And I would say to them, if you have such great ideas and you're so vested in this, then why don't you run for school board? Okay. Regarding the mask situation, the way I heard it from the attorney, and I know certain board members are not abiding by this and have a whole political agenda of people that follow it, related to non-masking and violation of and all this other stuff. Listen, it's what the government's mandating. And like Mr. Senza said, if you want movement on that, write Trenton, get Murphy attention. We live in New Jersey. That's the way it goes, and that's the way it is. Stop taking it out on the board members and talking about how they don't care about the kids, because they do. All right. They've helped our children. Our children are excelling in the district. These are tough times for everybody, even the kids. And I think we all need to calm down, use a little more common sense, find the areas for which we can find middle ground, and find more of that middle ground And I look forward to a better 22 than we had a 21. So thank you again. Congratulations to all. And appreciate the time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Mr. Lytle?
Ms. Sokoleski, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Lorraine, I have one kid in the district and one that I pulled from the district. While I agree that our fight is with the governor and that we should contact our representatives, I am still asking all of you to resign. What good you may or may not have done as a board member is no longer relevant. What matters now is what you can't do, what you won't do. You have said repeatedly that you are just following orders. I know some of you won't resign because you do not even pretend to be on our side. You enjoy your power a little too much. However, some of you say you are on our side, but your actions prove otherwise. The propaganda in our schools says otherwise. It's unnecessary to be thanking kids in between classes for wearing their masks. It's unnecessary to have pictures in our newsletter of a lion with a mask on. You can follow the orders without cheering them on. Maybe it's not fair for us to ask you to risk your license, to risk your job, to receive fines and jail time. So we will not ask that of you. But it is not fair for you to ask us to sacrifice our children for you. If you cannot, if you will not stand up for our children, if you are not willing to lose something personal, then please resign and let someone who is willing to fight at any cost take your place. Because if you will not resign, you are just proving that it is about you and not the children. Someone who truly cares about the children would allow someone else to step in when they could no longer offer what the kids need. Right now, these kids need a Board of Ed member that's more concerned about the well-being of them than losing their jobs for non-compliance. You may wish we could go back to normal, but there was never a war won on a wish. It takes courage and sacrifice. If you cannot do that, then resign and make way for warriors who can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lytle?
Ms. Hollister, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Thank you, Allison Hollister, Forked River. I would like to congratulate Mr. Armato for making the school board, as a lot of parents have voted him in, and I agree with what Ms. Later said, as why is Mr. Armato not on any committees? It seems like he is trying to be pushed out. As coming from a parent's perspective, second board, actually third board meeting, except really never got to experience it because it was shut down. The other thing I agree with Miss Later as well is the school food. Having two children in the district who come home and have been receiving the food, telling me the food is frozen in the middle, mold in the food. Okay, so we want them to get sick? I mean, sit down, have what they're eating. The other thing I would like to bring to the board's attention is the concern for segregating and discrimination towards our youth and their mental health. Their mental health is suffering severely. There is severe bullying in your schools on a daily basis. There is a bulletin that was sent out as per the Department of Health, I believe, and the New Jersey Department of Education, that if the district has a high COVID rating, that those children who are unvaccinated or who are not up to date on their shots cannot participate in any or all extracurricular activities. I am appealing to you all to rethink that if you are thinking of doing that, as I have children who are unvaccinated and will remain unvaccinated against the COVID virus. I do not feel that is my point to do to them at this point in time. However, letting these children be discriminated against and segregated for not having this vaccine to go to these things that they love, the clubs they love, to be with their other friends, to do drama, theater, basketball, baseball, and other sports because of a vaccine. This is teaching them that just because you don't have a vaccine means that you're not good enough. Their mental health will suffer from this. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hollister. Mr. Lytle?
Mr. Rizzoli, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Good evening, Tony Rizzoli, Sunrise Beach. You hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, first off, congratulations, Mr. Polino, for taking over the leadership and direction of the board. And also congratulations to Mr. Amato for getting the second amount of highest votes to be the president of the board. Maybe that'll change in the next general election where you'll have more support. Mr. Polino, can I address Mr. Padula?
Negative.
Okay, then I'll address you. You could tell Mr. Padula for me that I'm a taxpayer and I don't have any 5Cs that I follow. You see, I don't have any children in the district, so all his 5Cs don't apply to me. So therefore, I'm asking Mr. Padula, is there anything that the 5Cs do apply to a taxpayer whose taxes pay your salary? Because I don't think there is. What I'd like is for more people who aren't parents, who are taxpayers, to show up at the meetings and say what's on their minds. It's a real simple thing to do. I've done it all the time, and other people have done it all the time. So when it comes to the 5Cs and ethics, the ethics apply to everyone and how they say things at the meetings. I don't think I've ever offended anybody, but I'm not a parent. I am a taxpayer. Your salary is paid by us, the taxpayers, and I am requesting other taxpayers who are not parents, if they have concerns, to show up at the meetings and voice their comments. It's a very simple thing to do. And I've never been turned away, although I have been shut off after 5 minutes, sat down and got right back up again, as you all know. That's part of your system. I'll play your system by your rules. Mr. Polino, good luck in the future. Looking forward to seeing you and addressing you personally. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lytle?
Ms. Leiter, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hey, it's Anne-Marie Leiter again from the Woods of Bamber. I
Mr.
just
Polino,
really,
usually, sorry, Ms. Leiter, I don't mean to interrupt, but usually we allow everyone who wants to speak first before we go to
I was just
second.
trying to unmute myself.
I just noticed that she had been the only one with her hand
Okay.
raised.
I just want to make
did
sure
notice-
everyone gets a shot to speak first before we go back. For
if
Yes.
there's somebody else, Mr. Lytle, that raised their hand, in the interim, please go back,
Yes.
come back to me. I don't mind.
Just this moment, another person has, so I will.
Go ahead,
Just one moment.
no problem.
Mr. Lytle's well-trained.
Okay, Ms. Armato, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So hi, my name is Cheryl Armato. I'm a resident of Lenoka Harbor. First, I want to congratulate my husband, Sal Armato, for being sworn in tonight. As a mom, I feel my children, as well as all of the children of Lacey Township, finally have representation on the Board of Education. We now have a board member that will fight to defend personal freedom, medical choice, and one that values academic excellence for all. Sal will lead by example, not by mere words. Second, I publicly ask this board to end the continued discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and segregation at our live board meetings. This Board of Education continually refuses to hold live meetings with those that value personal medical freedom. I asked this board for a location where all are invited, included, and will not face harassment. At our meeting last week, board member Frank Polino attempted to intimidate me and other Lacey residents by filing inaccurate, misleading, and unfounded criminal charges against us for simply attempting to attend a monthly Board of Education meeting. Is this what we can expect from our newly elected board president going forward? Monthly harassment, criminal charges against mom and dads of Lacey Township? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's time we try something new, something for all, not just a select group. As a parent and a taxpayer, it is my right to attend these meetings. If this board chooses to continue to shun members of the community they don't agree with, how can we feel our children also aren't being shunned or retaliated against in the classroom? These meetings are supposed to be inclusive, not exclusive, only for certain individuals who this board feels they can intimidate into submission. We live in America. The only mandate that should be enforced is freedom. With all the major issues parents, taxpayers, and this Board of Education needs to tackle this year, where and how we hold monthly meetings should be the least of our concerns. It is my hope this board can vote to hold future meetings at an offsite location for all residents, taxpayers, and parents to feel welcomed. It is my hope we can agree to disagree and find common ground and the reason we are all at these meetings, the children of Lacey. Thank you very much.
Kristen Neal, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Yes, my name is Kristen Neal. I'd like to congratulate Sal Armato for standing up for our children and future generations of our town. All I can say is next year, I really hope that a lot of you can be gone. Sal is genuine. Sal is someone who stands up for our kids, our family. And I wish there were more people on the board like him. I pulled my daughter out of Lacey, actually. She went to Cedar Creek. She went to Mill Pond and Cedar Creek. And when COVID hit and she was forced to put on a mask, I took her out. And I have to say, there was not one outbreak in her school that I put her in. She goes to Christian school, maskless, every day. Not one outbreak. I'm sorry, but with the public schools, they're forced to wear masks. And there's outbreaks almost every day I read in the news. To me, that does not make sense. My daughter's healthy. She's smart, beautiful. I will not put a mask on her face. I know too many mothers who have come to me and told me that their daughters or sons who have worn a mask, they're scared to even go into a store because they're scared that they're going to get germs. It's changing this psychological aspect of kids. We used to play in the dirt. I mean, like, it's not going to go away. It's going to be a respiratory disease. I have my bachelor's degree in health sciences. I've studied diseases as well. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with what's going on. I respect Sal. I hope you respect him too for standing up for our kids. And that's all I have to say, but it's destroying them psychologically. It's affecting our kids. And your fears shouldn't affect everyone else's. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Lidle.
Ms. Charterina, please unmute your microphone,
Hi.
state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hi, my name is Morgan Charterina. I live in Lacey in Forked River. I have 3 children who attend the Lacey Township School District. One 15 years old at the high school, one 11 years old at the Mill Pond, and one 7 years old at the elementary school. I would first like to start off by saying congratulations to Mr. Sal Armato and family. This is something that they have been fighting for years, for change for our area, and I'm very happy that we, the people, voted him in, whether the board wants him on or not. We, the people in Lacey, did. So I also feel that we, the people in Lacey, should have a voice as to him having a position, an actual position on the board. It's supposed to be a joyful celebration for their family and for us as we, the people who voted this man in, to celebrate his being sworn in today. Instead, I feel sad for him. The way that he was welcomed, it was saddening to me. It represents who represents our board. I mean, are you guys scared of the change that could come? Are you guys scared to stand up for our rights, for our children? Because what's happening is truly terrifying with our youth. Unmask our children, stand up for the generation, because they are now being silenced. They are being taught to be silenced. We are looking like we're living in a third world country at this point. This is America. This is why I would go to Newark and I would fight for my kids' freedom and my kids' rights when I had the chance. Now I don't have the chance. Now I have family members that, believe it or not, are being summoned by the court because they're being lied about not wearing masks. Like, this is what is happening. When we are standing up and we are fighting for our rights, we're now what, going to be thrown in court? What, my kids are going to be constantly sent home? Everybody knows who I am in this town and that I fight for my kids' rights. My kids are home on quarantine more than they are in these schools. Every single one of my children have been home more than they've been in school being educated. Their education has plummeted and it has become a disaster for all Lacey Township school children. Unmask our children, let them have a voice again, and ride with us, go with us, fight with us, because we're not going to stop fighting. We, the people that voted people like Sal Armato in, want the other people that do not want to fight with us to respectfully resign. And we want more Sal Armatos fighting for our rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lidle.
Are there any more who have not spoken? We have 2 in queue that have already spoken. If there's anybody who has not spoken yet, please raise your hand. All right, we have 3 in queue that haven't spoken. Okay, we have, hold on one moment. Ms. Arvello, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tiffany Arevalo. I live at 132 Hetherington Court in Lenoka Harbor. First, I would like to say congratulations to Sal Armato. My next comment is to everyone on this call. I would like to say that we need to work together. It should not be parents and citizens of this town against the board and vice versa, as it appears it is now. While we don't agree on everything, I hope that we can get to a point where we will not be silenced and can work together going forward. I am very concerned, just as the other parents stated earlier, about the segregation that is occurring and will continue to occur because of vaccination status. I am concerned about sports and extracurricular activities. My child is not vaccinated, and he will not be anytime soon. It saddens me that there is a time in this world that we would be excluded and our children's can be excluded for sports for not having a vaccine. I do hope if the time comes, I'm sorry, that there is a vote, that you do the right thing and not exclude our children and segregate them any further. I just have one other question, and I know that we are not to ask questions, but I'm seeking clarification on this. I was told in the past that if we email board members, they are instructed to not respond to parents. If we're not going to have communication at these meetings and responses by the board members to our questions and concerns, how are we supposed to get them if you're not allowed to respond to our emails?
Ms. Tartarino, are you done with your comments?
This is Tiffany Arevalo, not Mrs.
Oh,
Charterino.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I
Nope,
wrote down your name.
that's okay.
Arevalo. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Are
That's
you done
okay,
with your
no
comments,
problem.
ma'am?
If anyone can just clarify that, I would appreciate it, because obviously I do have concerns that would like a response. And if we can't get them addressed at these meetings, I would just like clarification how we do get a response.
Okay, well, there'll be no clarification tonight, like question and answer type of thing. But surely the board does business in public. So if you have questions that you have, obviously, about the segregation of sports and vaccinations, that's something you could address to the superintendent. That could be brought up in our curriculum and committees, and that could be addressed in the committees. So it'll come out, but I'm sure that we'll get involved in that and look at this stuff. So
Thank
the
you.
board members are not allowed to individually, like you said.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
As
you.
long as we are able to get a response, that's really all I'm looking for. Thank you.
Mr. Lytle, is there anybody else?
The names that I see are all names we've had before. I will start from the top with those unless somebody comes in the next moment. Seeing none, I'm going to Miss Leiter, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hey guys, Anne-Marie Leiter, Bamber Lake section of Lacey Township. I just wanted to say good job to Mrs. Charterina, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your name, Arvelio and Hollister. And I just wanted to add to, well, first of all, Mrs. McAvoy, I'm going to miss you, girl. You knew how to run a meeting. So good job to you. I'm noticing a difference. I'm sure it'll take some time. I wanted to add that, our children are stunted, especially in the ever changing and evolving, teenage years. At least my daughter is, and I'm sure I'm not alone. They're being stunted socially, and as I've stated before, educationally. Socially, these past 2 years, year and a half, have been brutal. They don't know how to communicate with each other in person. And as I said, their education is obviously plummeting. I'm really flustered. Oh, and also, Miss Klaus, I noticed how you voted, girl. I thought that you were going to be one to stand with Mr. Armato, since that's how you ran when, you were running for the board. You were for the people, for the parents, and it seems like you're not. So, Mr. Armato, good luck to you. There is a good handful, more than a handful, a good group of people that are standing behind you. And, we're looking forward to you being on this board and making some changes. That's all. I'm done with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lytle?
I see a new name popped up, so they're going to go to the beginning of the list. With the last name Pluta, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hi, my name is Jamie Pluta. I live on Penn Place in Forked River, is one of my houses where I pay taxes in this town. I have listened to everyone else before I wanted to speak just to see where this was going to go. And while I do completely agree with everyone that Sal Armato should have been put on a committee because he is a parent in this town that we voted for to be on this board, and now he has no voice for any of us, is so frustrating from a taxpayer, from a parent's perspective, from a local business owner. It is so frustrating to have him bullied out is basically what this looks like. And it's so upsetting. That's number one. Number two is you need to do a better job with what substitutes are within these walls of our classrooms. It is my understanding that there was at the middle school today, which I think is run like a fine-tuned machine. I give the principal and the assistant principal over there major props for the way that they run that school. But the substitute was asleep at the desk in my daughter's classroom today. And I understand it's an older gentleman. I really don't care. We need to do a better job of who's within these walls, and maybe the superintendent and the assistant superintendent actually need to walk through the schools and see what's going on under their roofs. I have a substitute art teacher that was teaching my daughter math for I don't know how many days, and nobody even knew about it. A substitute art teacher was teaching my daughter's math class and administering, I don't know if it was a test or a quiz, and could not answer any questions. Who are these people that are within the walls of this school that are teaching our children? It is an absolute disgrace. I'm embarrassed. I pulled my children last year and sent them to private school, and I probably should have left them there, but I had some faith that we were going to be able to get our acts together here this year and get things a little bit more back to normal. I have an advanced child in middle school who's in the pre-algebra classes. She plays sports. She's an athlete. How can I take all of that away from her and put her in a smaller school because Lacey Township cannot get their act together? It is so saddening. And I really think that as parents, and I'm one of them, and I'm happy to help, and I will do anything that is asked of me to make this better. Call on me, please. But we need to have a round table. We need to be able to have conversations together and figure this out, because it is not benefiting our children at all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Lytle?
Ms. Hollister, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Allison Hollister again, Forked River. I just came up with some other points that I forgot to mention in my first time go round. I just like to get some clarification. I know that you can't answer any questions, but if there is any clarification as what is the protocol for those parents who cannot mask due to medical exemptions attending meetings? As far as I'm concerned, they don't have a voice right now because they can't get to you guys to see you face to face, because that's probably what they want to do, is come face to face with you like myself and meet you guys and get to know who is sitting on our board. That's number one. When it comes to substitutes, like Ms. Pluta said, I agree. As my children have come home and said that some of the substitutes are kind of like not doing great, not that all exciting. I'm in the process of trying to get my substitute teaching license as we speak. I am waiting on the state. I would love to come work for Lacey. I would love to, absolutely 100%, because my kids love the school district. They love going to school. Maybe think about giving them some more money if possible. I know it's a state, it depends on the state, but there are other districts around us who are paying more. So maybe that's why you're not getting as many substitutes as you would like, and the good substitutes like myself or any other parents who have gone to college. and parents are listening, go try to get your substitute license to help our kids to be better for them. The last thing that I would also like to say is at the last meeting, Ms. Klaus went to go say something and was abruptly, and I mean abruptly, told to like, no, not at this time, next meeting, nothing. I would like to know what she was going to say at that meeting, and what if it concerned us parents, that's something that we should know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lido?
Mr. Bidnick, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Yes, Richard Bidnick, Forked River. Let's be clear, there could be a dialogue between the board and the public at these meetings, but this body chooses not to. You could conduct your meetings just like the township committee meeting and have individuals ask questions and have a dialogue and a discussion like a true democracy. You choose not to. Let's be clear about that. I also want to go down on the record that I am outraged at Sal Armato being so obviously snubbed from being on any committee. It's horrible, and the board, again, is showing its very ugly side, which I think all of us have seen over the last year. There have been many people who have demanded that members of this board resign. I have said this on a number of occasions. I think the behavior of this board is appalling. I think that you have failed the community. The education system is so obviously in disarray. I'm listening to parents, even the food services is terrible. There seems to be nothing that we are doing right at this school right now. And so the board is at the top of the heap. And if you aren't doing your job, and the people are obviously very unhappy with you, and you really, I don't understand why you continue to want to be on this body. Is it all just the power? Is that what it's all about? There are people who truly care about education and also doing it properly, who would serve on this body. We have a ton of people now who are willing. The giant has been awakened. I'm just wondering, really, what is the modus operandi of this body? Because it certainly isn't working properly. And it saddens me as someone who had worked in the education environment as a library director my whole professional life to see what is happening here. And it's just not getting any better. It just continues to get worse and worse. I also want to go down on the record. There is absolutely no reason why these meetings cannot be held somewhere else where everyone can show up at the meeting. Those that can't wear a mask for health reasons, those that choose not to wear a mask, and for whatever. There's absolutely no reason why this board will not do that, because to me, the only reason why you won't do it is because you don't want to hear from the public. You're not interested in what the public feels. You don't care about what you're doing to people's kids. It just seems like you are completely out of touch with reality. And the frustrations continue to boil. I'm listening to it tonight as I heard more parents, and I will not be silenced. You might try to silence some other people with the things that you do. You will never silence me. In fact, the more people try to stop me, the more I am emboldened to continue the fight. It's a moral issue, folks, and I have morals. So anyway, I just wanted to go on the record there. You need to consider moving these meetings. It's been asked and requested, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't do it. And I'm outraged that Sal is not on a committee, and you can change that and make it happen. He's an elected official. He deserves to be on committees, and we will not let this slight go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lytle?
Ms. Sokolowski, can you please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment?
Lorraine, I have one in the district and one I pulled. I also am requesting that the Board of Ed meetings be held off school grounds so that anybody who would like to attend, masked or unmasked, can do so. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Charterina, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hi, Morgan Charterina. I live in Lacey, Forked River, New Jersey. I have 3 children that attend the Lacey Township School District, 15-year-old in high school. I'm sorry, a 15-year-old girl in high school, an 11-year-old boy in Mill Pond, and a 7-year-old boy at Cedar Creek. I spoke earlier and I got a little bit flustered and I really forgot to talk about one topic, and I wanted to mention the food also. But first I would like to say, I am requesting who we the people voted in, Sal Armato, be on the committee. I don't know if there's a way that we are able to, fight this with you guys or what we have to do, but I feel like if the majority of the people want him on the committee, then that has to mean something. And I'm going to look into the legal rights and I'm going to see what we can do. I am also requesting that when the weather breaks and or when it doesn't break, I know that none of us would care to bundle up in hats, gloves, scarves. Our kids will be playing at the park. We want everyone breathing fresh air. We want to be able to all be at these meetings. I have missed so many meetings because I'm on Zoom and I'm a single mom of 3. I can't be cooking dinner on Zoom. I mean, I did it tonight because I wanted to, honor and congratulate someone who very much deserves to be on the board. But in past, I haven't been able to because everything gets switched to Zoom. I would also like to talk about a very important subject, and I really hope this makes sense because it really needs to be talked about. Bullying in the Lacey Township School District, bullying across the nation is at an all-time high right now. You always hear bullying, you think of the child that is a little bit different, or the child with special needs, or that is not the case all the time. I know personally that cheerleaders and football players get bullied constantly. Something you don't hear of very much because nobody says anything, but I want to make note that it is very bad in Lacey Township. The cheerleaders are called hoes and sluts because they're cheerleaders, and that is not okay to me. The football players are called jocks and stupid because they're athletes. This is bullying, no different than, bullying someone because they have purple or green hair or look different. I know cheerleaders that don't want to go to school during sports season, fall season on Fridays because they have to wear their uniform and they're going to feel ashamed. That needs to change. That really needs to be addressed. It was actually something I was going to talk to Sal about, but now that I know that you guys have muted him, I'm going to say it tonight. The other issue that I would like to discuss is the food. It's so funny to me that over the past 2 years, year and a half, my amazing President Trump put in order that we would not have to pay for our meals. And as soon as that order went through, especially more so this year, but even last year a little bit, the food service went down. The kids are eating, I don't even know what. My young boys, again, 7 and 11, looked so forward to the first time in their lives being able to buy, because I always just brought lunch and, that's like what we did. And now I'm like, you know what, we'll take advantage of this. And they came to me about a month ago and said, Mom, can we just buy? Because, we don't always like, what's being served. And actually my 7-year-old told me that the taco meat is old, yucky meat. 7 kids are honest. I mean, they say what it is and that's what it is. So I just really want to address that. Now it's so funny that, we don't have to pay for it. Although our taxes have paid for quite a bit over the years, no breaks ever given. The one time we're supposed to be given a break and we're going to give our children slop. And I believe that is it. I would also like to say, if you are looking for people, please, before I forget, that want to step up and help out, call me. Call me. I'll make time. I don't care what I have to do. I'll make time. I want change. And I want people on the board that want change too. We've got one already. Let's get more. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Lytle?
Ms. Neal, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Yes, my name's Kristen Neal. I'm from Forked River, New Jersey. I just want to point out that, you know, I listened to everyone's debates this evening, and I have to say 9 out of 10 were for Sal Armato tonight. And I would hope that the rest of the Board of Educationers would take, you know, would at least listen to the people. Most of the people that spoke tonight were for a different vision for what's happening in our education system. And Sal Armato deserves a lot more respect than what you have shown him. I went to the reorganization meeting on the 6th, and I saw how you, Polino, how you treated him. And I have it on camera. Okay. And I've been on this camera since you guys started filming. Certain people have made smiling faces, smirking. There's nothing to laugh about. There is nothing to laugh about this circumstance. I'm sorry. Our kids being masked, them worrying about germs, them not seeing their friends or celebrating their birthday party because they can't go to a certain place because of COVID. Like, there's nothing to laugh about. And you're smirking. I'm sorry, but it's much more, it's larger than us as parents. It's our kids. And I highly doubt it that most of you have kids in the system. Especially you, Scanlon. I highly doubt you have any kids. Downing, I highly doubt you have kids. McAlvoy, I highly doubt you have kids. Just by looking at you. And you, all three of you smirking and laughing about it. And Claus, I wish you did support Sal Armato. Same with Skip Peters. You were on his side. And why you didn't speak up, I don't know why. Because most of us in Lacey Township support him. We would have given you at least some sort of credit. But you know what? That's okay. Anyway, Sal, congratulations. We're here for you. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Lytle?
There's an individual with just the name Stephanie. Please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Hi, good evening. My name is Stephanie Lowodai. I'm in Forked River Beach. Congratulations to Sal. I am confused as to why Sal is not appointed to a committee. That's that. My concern is, I really think all of us, board members, parents, everybody, we all want to have a normal school year. I don't think anybody's arguing against that. I feel like we need to come up with ideas. How do we work against what's going on? Parents with board members, how can we work together to combat this? Because my fear is that where's the line? Like, where do you draw the line with the executive orders? I understand you say that we have to follow the executive orders, Okay, well, the kids are masked. Clearly, when you're masked, you're not getting as much oxygen in your brain, but I guess that's okay. We can't draw the line there. This new news of extracurricular activities, how vaccinated students would be the only ones allowed to participate, or if you're unvaccinated, you have to get tested to participate. To me, that's segregation. And if we don't fight against that, then we're saying that segregation is okay. What's the next step? I mean, I'm just talking about New Jersey and the governor and everything. What's the next step? The next step is going to be mandating vaccines, or maybe it'll turn into, you know, if a student is vaccinated, they don't have to mask up. But if a student is unvaccinated, they have to mask up. And again, that's segregation, discrimination. Like where do the school boards, not just Lacey, I mean, all of New Jersey, where do the school boards draw the line? I mean, is there a way that the school boards can work together? And I don't know, could we have a meeting with the governor? I mean, I'm just trying to kind of shoot from the hip right here. There has to be something that we could do that we could all work together. I mean, we all want our kids to enjoy school. I enjoyed school when I was in elementary school. I loved it. I pulled out my kids. You know, when things are normal, they want to go back, but they don't want to wear masks. So I will never force my child to wear a mask. But again, I don't think this is what you guys want either. I don't know, like, how do we communicate so we could maybe come up with a game plan, or maybe see if other school boards are willing to just come together and meet with the governor? I mean, I don't know what to do. I really don't. And, you know, as parents, we just want to fight for our children. Again, I want my kids to go to school and have a normal life and enjoy it. You know, so many kids, they don't even want to go, and it's sad. So again, I mean, really, there has to be something we can do. If we could just meet and just brainstorm. I mean, this can't be it. You know, just it's like a one-man show. The governor, that's it. Just they didn't even vote on his extension. And it's kind of, oh well, next day, I'll just create a new emergency. How do we work on this together is what I would like to know. And I'm sure many parents, board members, I'm sure you're willing to work with everybody. Maybe we can make something like that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Lytle?
Ms. DeLuca, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Jessica DeLuca, Heatherington Court. I just did not get to finish, and I apologize, it was my own fault, but I do too need to congratulate Sal on his position there. I agree with the others that he needs to be appointed to a committee position. There's no reason why he should not be. I also want to go on record that I believe with my heart that there is another location that we can have these meetings where all can attend. People that don't believe in masks, people that do. I don't, like another person had said, if we have to do it outside, it can be done. It's just up to you guys to take that step and make it happen for us. That last person that just spoke wonderfully, you heard it in her plea. She is asking you guys to come with us on this journey and help us to fight Governor Murphy. There has to be something that you guys have up your sleeve that you guys can say, hey, if we all come together, whether it's just Lacey or it's Lacey and Stafford seems to be very vocal about wanting to go to an optional mask mandate. I don't think somebody like Stafford would ever agree to this exclusion and these crazy rules of vax versus unvax for these extracurricular activities. And then lastly, it just comes down to you guys. You guys have to want to help us. We voted for you guys, and just like we voted for Sal to be there, we need you guys to step up and step with us in the directions that we want to go, which is the normalcy again, our children out of these masks, our children smiling again,
our children being healthy again, our children being able to do sports. And just my 5-year-old says, we're not allowed to hug each other. That is the saddest thing to hear out of your 5-year-old. I'm not allowed to hug my teacher. I'm not allowed to hug my friend. This needs to change. And I ask you guys, truly, you need to start listening to us, and we need to move to a different direction. Mr. Paulino, if you are now the president, maybe you are the one to make the change. Maybe Ms. McAvoy was not in the right position to do that, or maybe she didn't hear us loud enough to say that it's time to make a change. So maybe it's your time to shine right now. That's it.
Mr. Polino, I'd recommend we move on at this time. Everyone had a chance to speak once and everyone had a chance to speak twice, and the comments are becoming redundant and repetitive. And so the board has satisfied its legal obligation and gone above and beyond its legal obligation for public comment, and it is permissible to move on and close public comment at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Padula. If there's any newcomers that want to speak, we'll take one more, and then after that, we'll move on. Mr. Lytle, is there anybody?
Just to confirm, there are 2 people in the queue. However, they are people who have spoken, although they only spoke once.
Okay, so we're going to take these last 2 comments and then we're going to move on from there. Allow them to speak.
Mrs. DeSenza, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Bruce. I appreciate, you wanting to end public comment, but after what I've heard, I'm going to let the parents know, because I can now, that board policy bylaw 0155 does not guarantee all board members a seat on any committee. For 6 years, I have said that our board policies and bylaws need to be rewritten with more specifics, and I was refused time and time again. I am done.
Thank you, Mr. Senza. Mr. Lytle, last one.
Mr. Rizzoli, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Polino, with all due respect, as the new president, you've made a strategic mistake by excluding Mr. Amato from a committee. Let me tell you why. There is no limit for a board member, 5-minute limit, to speak at a meeting about views that board member sees after is brought forward. When the committee chairman reports on what that was discussed in private, Mr. Amato has the right to take as long as he wants in public at the meetings to question every decision that is brought forth by that committee. If it was what you should have done, in my opinion, is put Mr. Amato on every committee. This way, every decision that was made in private, and he would not have the opportunity to discuss or question every decision that is made in private on committee. And if you shut him down, Mr. Polino, you're going to look really bad. And when it comes November, you guys are going to be out. Think about your future. Have a nice night. And Mr. Padula, stop smiling so much.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to move on. Letter L, we're going to do board and superintendent comments. So we're going to start with Dr. Clark. Dr. Clark?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Polino. I'll be brief. Just wanted to congratulate Mr. Peters. I'm looking forward to our continued collaboration. Congratulations to Mr. Armato. I am looking forward to our new collaboration moving forward in 2022 and beyond. As a 2-term board member, I just want to briefly thank Mrs. DeSenza for her dedicated service to the students, staff, and families of the Lacey Township School District. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize and thank Mrs. McAvoy for serving as board president for the past year. It was an interesting and tumultuous year as we continue to navigate through this seemingly never-ending pandemic. I will miss our regular communication. And finally, we now turn to Mr. Polino for his leadership as board president and to Mr. Scanlon as board vice president. I am looking forward to working with the both of you as well as with the rest of the board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. So we're going to start our board comments. So I will start with you, Mr. Amato.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations to Skip. Congratulations to you, Frank, and Mr. Scanlon. And I want to thank everyone that voted for me. Your continued support as we stand up to the tyranny in Trenton and now here in our own district with regards to mass choice and personal medical freedom has been an inspiration. As this board continues to conspire ways to have me removed, I need you to continue. I need you to continue to demand for off-site meetings. I ask that you do not be deterred by the threats this new board is trying to scare you with. And I ask that you continue to fight for mass choice, personal medical freedom. Do not let this board segregate us. Tonight, this board handpicked the new president. This president of the board does not have the qualifications to lead during these times. We are not looking for a rude follower. We need a president with the courage and the ability to accommodate all residents of Lacey Township so board meetings can be inclusive, not segregated. With those with different opinions are not threatened, but asked to elaborate on their thoughts. There is no plan to work with you, and there is no plan to fight for your child's rights. The line that this board likes to use is think of the children. We have children in the district. You don't. We deal with the everyday issues of wearing a mask has on our children. You don't. We know the psychological damage wearing a mask has done. You don't care. We know that the science proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that masks don't work. So unless you have children in the school district, please stop telling me and all the others how we should care for ours. At our last meeting, this newly handpicked president decided to try and flex his muscles. And he threatened me, my wife, family, and friends with legal action for not wearing a mask at the last attempted reorganization meeting. This week, my wife and 3 other Lacey residents would serve with summons for refusal to wear a mask. I want you to think about that for a second. A criminal charge for exercising your God-given right to breathe. As this sinks in, I also want you to think what this president would do if a vaccine mandate were to be instituted. We need to demand for his resignation. He has one plan: destroy our school experience, for our children. There is no other plan. This president is confrontational, attacks residents personally, and will not work with the public to accommodate all residents of Lacey. Our forefathers were not afraid when they came here over 200 years ago to start a new nation. Abraham Lincoln was willing to risk his life to ensure all men are created equal. They were honored to do this. They were honored to support our Constitution, our American way of life, and our rich American heritage. And this country was founded for the people and by the people. So I am too honored to hold this position. I know that our outgoing president, Donna McAvoy, is not a vicious person. I know all the work that Kim does to help our sports program. And from what I hear and what I began to get to know Skip, he's always willing to work. So tonight I'm asking Kim and Skip to join me as you both say you support mass choice and personal medical freedom. And you, Donna, as you are the one that continues to say, think of the children. Join me in solidarity as we continue to fight for mass choice, personal medical freedom, and think of the best way we can protect our children from the damage that is being planned to harm our children. It is time. It is finally time that we start thinking of the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amato. Next, Mr. Peters.
Thank you. First, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Amato on his win. Welcome to the board. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I was disappointed by what took place at last week's meeting. I don't think many people realize the effect not being able to have our meeting. Not only were we unable to install our new president and vice president, we were unable to establish committees and hold the scheduled committee meetings this past week. These committees meet to discuss and decide on finance, facility, and curriculum issues. As a side note, everybody had a family in attendance and missed out on sharing this moment in person. Second, I'd like to thank the voters of the town for their support. I would also like to thank the people that supported me, knowing that I'm here to make decisions what's best for the children. I promise to do whatever it takes to make the board successful. And again, every decision I make is for the students first. Unfortunately, the governor made a decision yesterday that will continue to make us wear masks during our board meetings, and students and staff, including myself as a school teacher. I was disappointed in yesterday's health emergency being extended by the governor's executive orders. Again, being a school board member, we need to be focused on what's best for the children and not our own personal agendas. If someone in the public ever decides to run for Board of Education, my advice is for interested individuals to understand that to be a successful board member, take the majority. When it comes to voting, and if on the board is successful and productive, the goal should be to work together and never forget that we're all on the same team, working to make Lacey Township District the very best it can be. There was no I in team. Thank you. And congratulations, Mr. Polino and Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Mrs. McAvoy?
Thank you. My comments are brief tonight. I'll save my comments for the board meeting, which is next Thursday. Congratulations to Sal and Skip. I'm looking forward to team effort. And congratulations to Mr. Polino, Mr. Scanlon. I'm looking forward to your leadership. Thank you, Mr. Polino.
Thank you, Ms. McAvoy. Ms. Claus?
Sure. Good evening. Congratulations to Skip Peters on his reelection. I'm sorry we have to celebrate this online. It was nice to see your parents coming out with your friends last week. Would have been nice if we had it in person, but it just didn't work out that way. I know how hard you worked in the past months, and it's well deserved that you got on. Sal, welcome aboard. One bit of advice I would like to share with you is the power of policy. If you would like to make a change or any change, you need to look at the policies that we hold. You need 4 votes, and with 4 votes, that's where the change will come. One board member obviously cannot make a change, but the majority can. You know that I voted against the mask mandate. I voted for choice. I will continue to advocate for that. My stance hasn't changed. I really was hoping that the governor was just going to let it go, but he didn't. So we're just going to have to keep working on that. We do fight behind the scenes, which you don't know. You'll see it now. So our work, we continue to work all the time, Sal, and I hope you can join in on that. I do want to address your comment about we're trying to kick you off the board. Sal, that's not true. I don't know where that's coming from, but it's not true. So, call us, reach out to us. Hopefully we'll do the same, and, we can all come together. I also wanted to address the conversations tonight about the vaccine mandates to participate in sports. I believe that was just a recommendation. It hasn't come across to us yet. There's no way I would ever vote for any vaccine mandate for sports at all. So I'm sure most of the board members would feel the same, but that still hasn't even come across to our committees yet. So we can just put that aside for now. I guess that's it. I wanted to also congratulate our new board president, Mr. Polino, and our vice president, Mr. Scanlon. I'm looking forward to your leadership this year. It's going to be a great year. We have a lot to work on, and I think you two are perfect for the position. So thank you again, and good luck to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Claus.
Sure.
Mrs. Downing?
Thank you, Mr. Polino. And I'm sorry for the up and downs. I have a very sick dog and I keep putting him outside while we're talking. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you, Frank and Ed, in your positions as president and vice president. It's a lot of good luck coming your way. And if you need anything, feel free to call me and I'll help in any way I can. Donna, I want to thank you and Frank as president and vice president for last year. It was a very tumultuous year for you. And it's a thankless job. And I think you both did a great job. So thank you for all your time. And now your family, well, not Frank, but Donna, now your family can have you back with all the time you spent. Bruce, I want to thank you for the ethics training tonight. I've sat on this board for a while, as I've been criticized about. And I must say, I've never seen the ethics training that is well done as the one you did tonight. And I will be calling you if I may have permission from Mr. Polino, because I have some questions about social media and things that were posted on social media by board members that may be a little unethical. And I think that our board needs some clarification on that so it doesn't happen again. Sal, I agree with Kim when she made the comment saying that we're trying to keep you off the board. And I was going to ask that I meet with you if Frank gives me permission to do so. I'd love to know where you heard that from, who told you that? And because ever since that comment was made to you, it seems like all hell broke loose. So I'd really like to sit down with you and find out who told you that and why it was said, and so we can all get off on a good start. This board will never be successful if we have inner fighting between us. We all have to work together. You know, it's bad enough what we're going through with the pandemic, all the, discord and argument. So as a board member, the 7 of us, I'd love to sit down with you and find out who told you that and who's stirring the pot to make everything go sour. So think about it. I want to wish everyone a very happy new year, a healthy new year, and let's hope and pray that this pandemic goes away. And it's not going to go away totally, I know that, but let's hope it gets somewhat better. That's it, Frank. I'll talk more Thursday night.
Thank you, Mrs. Downing. Mr. Vice President.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Polino. I would like to start out by thanking the board for selecting me to be vice president and giving me their vote of confidence there. I appreciate that, and I will try to do the best job I can. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Mrs. McAvoy for her leadership over the past year. And I hope that we continue to have conversations on a very regular basis, because I think I need your guidance more now than I did when you were president. And so speaking of guidance, I'd also like to thank Mrs. Downing, because with her experience, it's a person I can always go to and know that I'll get the right answer. Congratulations, Skip, on your reelection and your continued participation on the board. You are a pleasure to work with, and I know that you'll continue to be a person we can all turn to when we need the hammer to really put it down. You're very clear in what you think, and you speak your mind, and it is always good to listen to you. And I'd like to also welcome Mr. Amato to the board, and look forward to the time when we can work together, when we can get past some of our differences. One of the differences I would just like to address, though, is that I disagree with you totally when you say I don't care, or I have no concern, or I have no connection because I don't have children. I have grandchildren here. And maybe someday when you have grandchildren, you'll realize that they may even be more important than your kids sometimes. And I just would like to let you know that that's something that if you're going to continue to say, we will never agree on, but we can maybe agree on other things. And with that, I would just like to say, wish everyone a happy new year, and we'll all talk again on Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon.
Mr. Polino, may I interrupt 1 second?
Absolutely.
I just looked at my notes and I did forget to congratulate Sal and Skip on their election. And I wish them a lot of luck and I'm looking forward to working with them. So thank you. Sorry.
No worries, thank you. Okay, so that leads up to me. I'd like to thank Mrs. McAvoy for her due diligence as president. It was a tough year, just as it was for Mrs. Downing. And quite honestly, every board president has an issue that's brought up and they have to work through it. There's no plan or book that guides you through everything. You take things and do things the best you can and rely on the experience of others and your personal experiences, and you try to navigate through the rough waters and get through and do the best you can. So in response to a lot of things, first of all, welcome again, Mr. Peters. Congratulations on your win. And I know, Mr. Amato, you're not going to believe this, but I do welcome you. And I, like the other board member said, I don't know where this whole conspiracy thing is trying to get rid of you. That is completely not true. I don't know where that is. And it may look like it though, for the fact that you were not placed on a committee. But as I said in the beginning, I have some very good reasons why I did what I did, and I would be happy to speak with you at another time of my reasons why I did what I did. And it's not to say that you're going to be completely excluded for the whole year, but we have some personal discussion to have to kind of smooth things over. But before I get to some of that, I want to just bring up some stuff about our policy and the way things we're going to conduct business. So as I said in the beginning, we are a board of committees and we get everything done through the committees. And it is the committees that report at our regular meeting. And it is that time for the board members to ask questions about what was accomplished in the committees before there's a vote, a roll call vote. So with that said, it was brought to my attention that some board members wanted a little bit more time to have that opportunity to speak amongst themselves, because again, we do our business in public. So with that, if you notice on the agenda, our meetings will still start at 6, our agenda meeting, and it will go a little bit longer until we come back. We have more time to either go into private session or spend time discussing committee. So we added an extra half hour for our agenda meeting. So we're going to try to expand on that and allow our committees and the board members that are not on committees to have more dialogue. And that is how a board of committees work. With that being said, it was brought up about the attorney. Just so everybody knows, and Mr. Amato, if you're not familiar because you had not been on a board, that the attorney is not open to free will of all the board members. You must go through the board president if you wish to speak to the attorney. And again, that it's granted by myself. The protocol for board members, if you have stuff you want brought up to the committees for something to discuss and brought on the agenda for the committees, what I ask you to do is to submit an email or communication to the committee chair, and you can include myself and the vice president if you like, to allow that to be spoken to on the committees. This way it could be brought back to on the open floor during our meetings. I ask that, as Mr. Padula said, we are a board of 7. We act together, not alone. It is not the time for board members to be getting personal favors done or anything like that, or take their own personal agendas, their campaign agendas to the superintendent and the business administrator every day. They need to run the school district. So with that, I ask our board members to submit any questions that they may have to our superintendent or business administrator, submit them in an email to their appropriate secretaries, and please include myself on the email. So I'm aware of everything that is going on. So if somebody has a question and they present it to me, I know what's going on. I ask that you not text the superintendent or business administrator all day with questions, comments, or wanting information. Again, whatever information you're requesting, maybe some other board members would like that information. They may have a question about it too. So if you put it in writing to them, it could be addressed so everybody could see it, not just one board member. So I ask that will be our policy. Sports and vaccines, I heard that maybe some from some other districts, but as far as I know, that's not being, happening here. I would definitely not be in favor for that. And, I know one of the parents, and I forgot her name, wanted to know our position on the mask. And I know that back, probably in 21, I know that the board members made comments, and I was one of them, that if the opportunity arises where masks could be optional, I am certainly for the option of students wearing masks in the classroom. If we are allowed to do that, I am all for that. But one thing we have to remember that the board is the board, and our employee, and our only employee, is the superintendent, and the superintendent makes the decisions on how to run day-to-day business in the district. So that would be, if that opportunity comes, that would be the dialogue between the board and the superintendent. But I would hope that there would be enough people, if the option is available, to go to that option. Let me just address, because it's been brought up tonight, the charges and the mess that occurred last week. Completely disappointing. Mr. Amato, I'm going to tell you, I didn't threaten you that night in the meeting, after the meeting. I promised you, and I told you what I was going to do. I'm the type of person, I'm not going to blindside you. I'm not going to come around from your back. I'm going to tell you to your front. And I told you that night that I promised you I was going to charge you, your wife, and whoever else in your friends there that weren't wearing masks, which caused us to cancel our meeting. And I did. But I have to tell you, Mr. Amato, your charges are not coming yet because they're held up at the prosecutor's office. And there's a reason for that. And I'll discuss that with you afterwards if you like. They're not criminal charges against the 4 individuals, your wife and everything else. They are disorderly persons offenses. Yours, Mr. Amato, is a little bit worse than that. I'm done with the antics in the meetings. We have to conduct business. There's a reason why we have these meetings. And twice now, because of the antics of some parents, and Mr. Amato, you being one of them, we had to cancel our meetings, and people lost out. You, Mr. Amato, you lost that cherished moment when your parents and your wife, she couldn't stand in front of the crowd and hold that Bible for you, and your parents couldn't stand there and watch you be sworn in. You took that away from yourself. You took that away from Mr. Peters with his family that night. When we have to cancel meetings, you take that away from the children who stand there to get their awards. I'm done with that. The fact of the matter is, none of us like this. The fact of the matter is, we are sworn to a constitution, and you just took that oath tonight. And one of the things in there in that law says you will abide by governor's mandates and laws, and that is a mandate and it's a law. For 2 meetings, you wasted our time there, because now other board members and myself have to spend more time away from our family, such as tonight, to have a second meeting because you and some of your friends didn't want to wear a mask. So why should we suffer because of something that you, being selfish, don't want to do? There's a lot of people that wear. I have to wear a mask at work, at my jobs, all day long. Do I like it? I don't like it. So I'm asking you, now that you're an elected board member, stand by your oath and do the right thing. Stop wasting our time. Stop taking away precious memories from our children for being up there in their own school, getting their awards. I'm willing to work with you. The rest of the board is willing to work with you. And you're going to learn that it's not your agenda and your agenda alone. It is now 7 people's agenda to work together. So let me be clear. I will, at every meeting, if somebody comes in and takes their mask off and refuses to put their mask on, and we will cancel that meeting, I promise you, if I identify you, I will charge you, because I'm tired of you wasting my time and the school board members' time because you're being selfish. So let me be clear. So with that, I just want to wish everybody a happy new year. Hopefully we're going to get through this. We can mend some bridges and fences, and we can move on together. At this point, I'd like to take a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Peters.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.